of our discussion is securing national critical infrastructure. Our protocol duly observed after the high table. Because of time, normally, ladies and gentlemen, security issues are always critical. But that of infrastructure of a nation are very much more critical than any other security issues. The problems most nations are passing through today as a result of neglect, inability to handle their critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure are the souls and body of a nation. If neglected, that country or nation will suffer some meditative features in and out. So therefore, no wonder General Powers, after concluding a training on asset management in the US, told us, the late General Powers, that critical infrastructure are very critical and must be managed by critical persons. Introduction. Security of a nation and its critical infrastructure is second to none. That is why all world governments develop every means possible towards the actualization of real security in their nation states. What are national critical infrastructure? Critical national infrastructure, as the name implies, are systems and assets, whether physical or visual, so vital that the incapacity or destruction of such systems and assets would have a debilitating impact on society. The word debilitating, ladies and gentlemen, is very, very important. It's like it's a medical word when you have the back pain that pinch you. So if you tamper with the national physical infrastructure, that's how it will look like. Both national economic society, security, public health or safety, or any combination of those matters, as informed us by Information Technology Act 2000. ASIS International 2008 stated that national critical infrastructure consists of sensitive assets defined under international, federal, and state laws governing trade secrets, patents, and copyrights. Having said the above, national critical infrastructure are those assets of a nation essential to the functioning of the economy and national security. National critical infrastructure are relevant assets of national strategy, tactics, operations, and compliance. That is what we call STOC. Normally, it's the center team of every security in any organization. STOC, S-T-O-C. STOC is always being compared to FIRM, which is F-I-R-M. STOC has to do with what? Strategies, direction, operations, and compliance. And it's always measured in 0.5. If your direction is not working well, you go to F-I-R-M. FIRM. Then F stands for financial. Then if your tactics are not working, go straight to I, which is infrastructure. Then you measure the position you are with your firm. Then operations. If your operation is not working, you move into finance. You see your infrastructure. R stands for reputation, and the M stands for the position you are. So this is how to measure it in security. Infrastructure can as well be described as an area of concern surrounding protection of systems, networks, and assets whose continuous operation is deemed necessary to ensure the security and survival of a given nation, its economies, and the public health. It should be noted here that national critical infrastructure facilities are responsibility of the originator in compliance with the need to know principle. What I mean by the originator, people who have the wherewithal to take a critical infrastructure of a nation, if they are not present, it's going to constitute a problem because it's going to cascade other sectors of the economy. They are property of the originator and may not be given to any who is not of the originator of the property. Studies have concluded that 75% or more of national critical infrastructure are tangible assets, assets that can be seen. Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA 1990, provides ample opportunity to any to own and acquire this property or assets. They are also given power to protect these assets. Therefore, national critical assets infrastructure of Nigeria deserves a great deal of security attention to enable core business of the country to function properly. If you watch out very closely, the government of President Muhammadu Warri has 9 priorities. The first priority is number 9, which is agriculture, ladies and gentlemen. The second priority is point 8. It's always being measured in security with the last number, and which is important. So agriculture is important to every nation as a national critical infrastructure. If you watch out, with the key performance index that was done by the team of the people taking the performance of each of the ministers, you know, the former agriculture for minister was removed. I'm talking about was removed because the measurement in using to measure its performance was below the KPI. In another dimension, physical security and national critical infrastructure are intertwined and intertwined. They are often relatively used. Physical security is critical towards creating sufficient time between detection of an attack and the point at which attack becomes necessary. That is why physical critical infrastructure cannot be handled by quacks, those who do not know. That was why Victor Hugo said in one of his books, Less Miserable, that if an idle man is left in the darkness and a crime is committed, the fault is not the man who committed the crime. The fault is for those who created the darkness. As for security practitioner, which you are, the theft triangle, the darknesses that surrounding criminal activities is what you are going to be removed. And once those darknesses are removed, then security is assured. Why are national critical infrastructure critical? Why are we saying they are critical? Why using the word critical? National critical infrastructure are said to be systems of national significance. Systems of national significance and significantly small subsets of critical infrastructure assets that are most crucial to the nation by virtue of their independencies across sectors and potential for cascading consequences to other critical infrastructure assets and sectors if disrupted. Critical national infrastructure are the body and soul of a nation. A change or destruction done on national critical infrastructure can be highly consequential to the entire country. The problem we are having today is not the problem of today. It's the inability of handling the national critical infrastructure of Nigeria for the past 30 years. That is what we are suffering today. Similarly, national critical infrastructure of a nation are in the eyes of the terrorist group and the bandit elements, so they must be fully cared for and protected. Nation's national critical infrastructure brings development and growth to other sectors of the economy. Due to the high sensitivity of national critical infrastructure, they are therefore demand high security architecture. We will look at the forms or other types of critical infrastructure. National critical infrastructure is a term used by government to describe assets that are essential for the functioning of a society and the economy. Normally, there are two categories of national critical infrastructure, which are social critical infrastructure, which includes schools, affordable housing, and hospitals. Economic critical infrastructure, which include roads, communication, water supply, airports, power and energy, etc. Critical infrastructure are the vast network of highways, railways, utility buildings, transportation, commerce, clean water and electricity, of which all systems rely upon. They therefore include the following: the government. The first national critical infrastructure is the government. The government that takes decision of the day. Odumegwu Ojukwu, in his book, Because I'm Involved, at page 38, said that every of his region's persons should strive to belong to the government, most especially the institutions. That the institution creates opportunity for oneself, but you as an individual, you cannot create opportunity for yourself unless you belong to the institution, the three arms of the government. 2, chemical sector. 3, commercial facility sectors, critical manufacturing sector, communication sector, dance sector, emergency service sector, the hospitals, energy and engineering sector, the school system sector. The school is probably the most critical of all critical infrastructure. How can Nigeria create the Silicon Valley? The Silicon Valley in the US, which we used to talk of today, is as a result of one university. That is where the people that fought Google, they attended this university, and when they came back, they were able to ban the formation of that institution of Google. We have not actually improved on our school systems. Sanusi once said about 3 months ago, I'm talking about the former governor of Central Bank, that only 7% of the budget go to the Nigerian education. No wonder Wole Soyinka said the other time that Nigerian education is dead. They are about to crucify them. Chinua Achebe, in his book, There Was a Country, he said that in those days, in Umuahia secondary school, they used to gather the children and discuss books. Then the children will practicalize on the books that have been discussed. Today, we have 186 days. The Nigerian students in the university and other higher institutions, where are they? They are striking at home, and the government of the day is not doing anything about it. How can we create the Silicon Valley without adding value to a critical infrastructure, the school system? We're also talking about the energy and engineering sectors, and these are the area where terrorists usually target in every nation. We'll come to that soonest. The financial system, the banking system, food and agriculture, transportation, information technology sector, the health, military installation, defense, the industrial based sector, prison or correctional sector, then the courthouses, the ports authority, refineries and gas installation, essential utilities like water. Ladies and gentlemen, we will look at the characteristics of national critical infrastructure. The defining characteristics of national critical infrastructure as an asset class have been listed down in this paper as follows. 1. High barriers to entry. It's difficult to actual individual persons to enter or create them. Their infrastructure projects generally comprise of public work projects. 2. They have inelastic demand. What NEPA electricity can give to you, always insatiable. You understand? Look at most of the factory that use energy, like Domo, they pack away from Nigeria and Kenya to Ghana. Because of what? Because of electricity. They also have economies of scale. They have large economy. The more you involve in adding value to critical infrastructure of a nation, the more productive and valuable the nation will be. About 20-something years ago, we forget about our shipping lines. And we have noted that the marine world has 90% of world trade. That was why Dr. Mrs. Wayne, after actualizing the WCO, came back to Nigeria and begged this government, please invest on the marine world. What a super tanker can carry, no any other thing can take it on the land or the air. There is much money when a nation evolves in the maritime industry. The neglect of Nigerian shipping line is still paid. It's a debilitating pain to many persons, because that is where huge source of money come to this country. They have long-term developmental projects. They also have low sensitivity to income swings. Majority of national critical infrastructure are also harmful in nature. These include mining, oil and gas facility, at worst with risky catastrophes that cost human life and profoundly damage the ecosystems. At best, they still disrupt local communities and habitats. They pollute air, water, and contribute to global climate change. These are some of the characteristics of the critical national infrastructure. Let us look at the rules of national critical infrastructure. The rules are plethora. National public critical infrastructure helps to boost the productivity of private capital and labor, leading to higher outcome or output. For instance, our emergency services are essential to safety of our nation, property, communities, and other citizens. They are the first responders by implication are a major part of our critical infrastructure. Secondly, national critical infrastructure departments are fast workers who support the transportation systems, including heads of schools, buses and drivers, crossing guards, cafeteria workers, cleaning and maintenance infrastructure workers, and those responsible for food delivery and supplies to facilities. In a more critical observation, national critical infrastructure cut across a network of mix of hardware devices, software applications, and network services including routers, switches, hubs, repeaters, gateways, and bridges. Software national critical infrastructure include monitoring and management tools and the operating system. Critical infrastructure cybersecurity relies on security framework protection based on layered vigilance, readiness, and reliance. These guiding elements of risk management are provided in National Institute of Standard and Technology's mantra for industry that identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Consider the critical roles played by ports in serving economic activities. That of port is very revealing and actually critical. You know, the new port at Lekki is not owned by federal government. The Aswani brother, the people that brought Indomie to Nigeria from Pakistan, negotiated with the Chinese company and borrowed $640 billion in order to ease the difficulties in our papaways and other ports that are not much, enough to cater for the problem of demolish as a result of keeping containers in the dock for quite a long time. What am I trying to say? Only 5% go to federal government by the time that port will kick off by September this year. 25%, 20% goes to Lagos State government. The rest percentage go to the people they borrow the money from in China and the negotiating company, the Aswani brothers. Why is it that the federal government of Nigeria cannot provide a port? Look at the Warri port here, lying in state. This port alone can give the government of Nigeria $20 billion a month. The one that is going to be operational is going to operate for about 25 years before they will own it to federal government of Nigeria. What is happening to our senators? The 109 senators and 360 persons in the lower house, what are they discussing that they cannot actually budget money, to tackle this critical infrastructure so that food and money can come to this country? Is it the personnel? Handle this thing to people that have the originator, the clearance to have, like what happened in Korea. I'm talking about Korea technology. Dr. Pat made the first class in mathematics. The wife made the first class in mathematics. The senior son of Dr. Pat also made first class in mathematics. The people of Korea hand over the government, take and handle it. Why can't we do that in Nigeria? The time I traveled to Korea, I was washing roads, I forgot almost myself. It was house-to-house electrification. 40 million persons to 40,000 megawatts. What are we operating in Nigeria? We need to look back. People are crying that there is hunger, there is starvation and all that. The problem is not the people to manage our critical infrastructure. Let this critical infrastructure be handed over to those originators, those who have the wherewithal, those who can create and control them. Point number 5. National critical infrastructure emergency management includes all modes of transportation, both public and private vehicles, trains, planes, boats, buses, and other physical infrastructure such as roads, bridges, dams, and railroads that are very important as they have major roles to play in other key sectors of the economy. Last but not the least, national critical infrastructure helps to create confidence as well as strengthening the federal government of Nigeria because they strive to stabilize the country by enhancing development and growth. They also improve the welfare, well-being, quality of life of the citizen. We want to look at the custody and management of national critical infrastructure. And this is where the problem lies. A nation's national critical infrastructure assets must be managed in accordance with the following security standards. Other continuous observation and attention at all times. Other care of someone who have the proper security clearance and the need to know and manage them. This is what we are talking about. We have people who can manage our finance. They are not being used. Do you know what Yoruba professor called Ken Afe? When Ken Afe want to talk about finance in Nigeria, in all the countries of the world, he will not look at paper. Why can't the government call on that person, go to and be our minister of finance? Do you know somebody called Rwanda Bismarck? Yeah, they are natives. The man who can analyze where money can come from. That is the meaning of the word derivatives in the critical infrastructure. The problem we are passing through is not the people, but the inability to handle our critical infrastructure. Custodian of all national critical infrastructure assets must ensure that those who do not have the authority to know do not have visual access to them. National critical infrastructure issues must be discussed only with those individuals who have the appropriate security clearance. What I mean by clearance is the wherewithal to actually handle this critical essential infrastructure. In terms of accountability, the heads of operating units in coordination with their servicing security officers or security contacts shall establish procedure for the accountability for the following national critical infrastructure. Top secret. Put that word is top, not T-O, top secret. Put P. The critical infrastructure will have the also harbor all this. Top secret, they are there. Is the highest information. Number two is secret, is the second category of information. Then confidential information. There will be annual inventory of all national critical infrastructure in order to determine possible downgrades, declassification, or damage to such holdings. During scheduled maintenance involving national critical infrastructure, the servicing security officer or security contact shall be notified of the scheduled service visits and arrange for an appropriate cleared employee to be present. Lastly, all national critical information must be safeguarded against spies, attacks, and mismanagement by political office holders. We are here on the main body of our discussion, which is security challenges, threats to national critical infrastructure. There are three categories of threats to national critical infrastructure worldwide. We have the natural threats, the earthquakes, tsunamis, flood, land shifting, volcanic eruption. Most of these natural, they are not only feel like flood that are occurring in Nigeria because goes and down us. Two, human cause factors such as terrorist attacks, criminal violence, theft, product tampering, bombing, financial crime, economic espionage, vandalism, fraud, and arson. Mechanical failure such as explosion, implosion. There is difference between explosion and explosion. Explosion, the word that occur outside. Implosion, the word that occur inside. Fire outbreak due to aging or lack of maintenance or poor security. It will be recalled that most core national critical infrastructure are vulnerable to attacks with massive impact on the nation and the citizen at large. The major security challenges or threats to national critical infrastructure can be seen as follows. One, insufficient professionals with technical know-how to manage these vital but key areas. I could remember my great poet, Mama Vasa of Nigerian Army, late. He said that if everybody can have the vision of a poet, the world would have remained without warriors. So if we can actually create people who have the will to manage our critical, rather national critical infrastructure, Nigeria would have advanced more than the Korea, the China we are talking about today. There have been, number two, our core national critical infrastructure have always been mismanaged by political office holders, as about 90% of them failed as revealed by our key performance index. This was the one that took last year when the Minister for Agriculture was removed because as a result of the lack of performance in agriculture, because agriculture is number one among the 9 priorities of the government of His Excellency Muhammadu Warri. Second is corruption. This is how we do it. We take it, as I've told you, the last point, which is the most essential. That's how we will in KPI. There have been reported cases of poor maintenance due to shortage of funds, inadequate security network system to secure our national critical infrastructure. This poor security architecture has led to the Kuje prison breaking recently. Take note, as a result of inability to handle our correctional center. The problem does not end in Nigeria. I was called on to present a lecture in Ghana. Unfortunately, I have a business in Port Harcourt. This one came just like that. My two friends, including a professor of mine, were together in the school. Went. In the midnight after the breaking, they wake all the Nigerian in major hotels in Accra. Get up, come with your immigration paper, get up. Big men, they started calling, say I should call people that doesn't know what is going to happen to them. Until we now explain that as a result of the Kuje prison breaking, so most prisoners or inmates scattered all over West African nations. So they are trying to checkmate to see if some of them are in the hotel so that they can get rid of them. That is what we call knockout effects. A problem that occurs in Nigeria, but having a secondary effect in some way. There is a challenge in power supply that has been inconsistent for the years. There is the existence of confusing regulatory environment. There is the problem of lack of clarity among national objectives and standards, as well as coordination in the development of national instruments of operation. Vandalism of this installation is a major issue to national critical infrastructure, such as the pipeline vandalism. The problem of arson, deliberate set on fire of public building. A hypothetical example was that of the Ministry of Defense in Lagos that was burned to ashes long years ago. Cases of sabotage also occur. This is willful destruction of a nation's critical infrastructure for selfish interests. Terrorist attack is a major one. Dr. Joseph Koran, the author of Secret Agents. This is a book that is widely publicized. Observe critically that there are 5 categories of terrorist targets on a nation's national critical infrastructure, which include number 1, when terrorists want to attack a nation, most especially their critical national infrastructure, the engineering and energy. Then number 2, communication supply to face cities. Then transportation system, the seaports, the railway. Then the human target, our embassy, corporate executives, the police, the judges, the churches, the large gathering places or center. Lastly, but very important, the military target, the weapons storage sites. They must be protected. They must be protected. The weapons systems, arms and ammunition command and control facilities. The one that the attack that are occur to the military base in Biu, is it supposed to be? It doesn't mean that there is a really negligence of such a very important military base, whereby ordinary person, a bloody civilian with gun can just go there and start to attack and succeed. It's uncalled for. Now, the security of national critical infrastructure. Attacks and other forms of human interference due to their geographical locations and as well as criticalities by their relative importance. Put in place a system of physical surveillance, access control and intrusion detection systems. There must be proper visitor control and escort protection. The anti-terrorist security must be layered security or security in depth. What I mean by layered or security in depth is that the protection must be one and you have another one following that also break in of 1, 2, 3, and if the layer is 5, then the security must have got what? An alert. That is what we mean by layered security or security in depth. There must be security guard response forces in place with technical security countermeasure. There must be viable installation of communication and signal security measures in all places where national critical security infrastructure are present. There must be adequate training and awareness of all users of critical infrastructure Ladies and gentlemen, that is why you are here, because I know that most of you will have your time to share some of our national critical infrastructure. There must be proper investigative capabilities in case of any incidents arising. Security must respond immediately to patch of known vulnerability. Vulnerability is what? It's a weakness. It's a lackadaisical attitude. Inability to take a decision. So whenever there is a loophole, you have to respond immediately. That is what we mean by patching a known vulnerability. The security department must strive to build a defensive environment for all national critical infrastructure. All external network connections must be secure, install CCTV, firewall, and all forms of intrusion detection system, as well as identification and authentication mechanisms in all activities involving national infrastructure. Security managers managing national critical infrastructure should apply ISO 27017, which is control management of critical infrastructure, which include information security policy, human resource management security, asset management, operational security. Special government security force should be instituted to secure or protect financial institutions, including banks, other depositories, security dealers, investment companies that are part of the nation's critical infrastructure required for a country's minimum economic operations. Allow listening application or application control. This is a security capability that reduces harmful security attacks by allowing only trusted files, application, and process to run. What that means is this. Now, as a security practitioner, you are supposed to have what we call binocular vision 2020. What that means is that your eyes must move, must turn. If your eyes, one of your eyes has defect, then you are not supposed to stand on the front of a critical issue. People who have complete eyes have to be in your front, because you may not be able to see apparently everything that is involved. That is what we mean by any security apparatus that is defect should not be used in defending an infrastructure. In every case, use appropriate technocrats to manage all national critical infrastructure. This is exactly what AKUDO cried out in Nigeria in 1979 after the general election in 1979, that if we refuse to make success in this second experiment, the consequences will be more critical. But those of you who are younger than myself, long you will live, but you cannot see democracy again. He was telling the politician of his time, allow me to manage this structure so that Nigeria can grow. Now we have about 10.7 million youth out of school. Why is it that Boko Haram will not grow? Because the school is there to structure people. If you go to school, it will be difficult for you to be a ragamuffin. Very difficult, because you have something you are aiming at. You know, your brain must have been brushed. You must have actualized something greater. You understand? To caution your ego and your super ego. So if you want to involve in crime committee, you should be able to know the consequences therein. We will look at the basic steps for national critical infrastructure security plan. So those of us who may be unfortunate, you know, to be in a situation to manage this critical infrastructure, these are the steps. The steps to be followed for our security plan towards national critical infrastructure is as follows. Determine the scope of operation. The level of operation must be determined. Identify the stakeholders for the people that are involved, both in and out. Document the rules and responsibilities that you are going to be tasked to give to people. Establish conditions and information mechanisms. Build a risk management framework. Set a time frame. Design and conduct enterprise risk management assessment. Very important, so that you'll be able to know the mathematics of security, threat analysis, vulnerability study, and survey, so that you'll be able to segment when there's going to be a problem to the free zone at the contiguous zone, at the consent zone, until that problem will meander to the critical zone where your pulse, where your money, where your determination lies, so that you can react, you know, by prophetic solution on time. A framework for improving national critical security. A nation's economic and social development is directly or indirectly dependent upon national critical infrastructure. There is no doubt. If the refinery is not there is no way. If you are producing diesel, now the cost of getting a tipper of sand, why is this high? A tipper of sand from the base where it is being suckered is 5,000 naira, but they are selling it 30 something thousand. Why? The landowner to take the sand into the tipper, we use what? Diesel. Where do you get the diesel? From outside world. Now the tipper that will take it to your to the facility where to be used is what they use. Diesel. Do you know how much a liter of diesel costs? When the tipper want to buy diesel, you will be wondering. You mean you are buying a diesel of 100 and something thousand inside the tipper? So you will wonder why the cost is like that, ladies and gentlemen. In the first place, the government should encourage to put in place programs to build and upgrade our critical infrastructure, such as iron and steel industry, line estate here at Alaba. We have been producing line estate. What we read from Adam Smith, the causes of the wealth of the nation, 1,800 pages, that as a human being, you must learn how to buy our and sell. At page 88 of that great book, that if you are buying alone, you are not selling. Someone is what? Is cheating you. Someone is cheating you. So if we are not producing, we are buying from outside world. We are being cheated. Secondly, the government of Nigeria should take it as a priority to increase investment in public transportation and its management to local authorities. Thirdly, there must be good government approach for addressing national critical infrastructure resilience. What we mean by resilience is a period where things are difficult. How do you adjust to a difficult time like the pandemic? There should be a policy measure for adopting a system management approach to national critical infrastructure. Similarly, building a dynamic risk landscape and policy options for building, designing, and developing national critical infrastructure will also go a long way in improving the system. Conclusion. The fact remains that national critical infrastructure are backbone of every modern interconnected economy. There is no, it's not people. People cannot steal much. One woman who is a national coordinator of something in law in Nigeria was saying that why don't we go back to the military? That in those days of military we are crying for democracy. You understand? But now we are seeing a situation where one civil servant will cater 80-something billion, in another month 80-something billion. That the military only few of them. It will be difficult to siphon the totality of the woman was making such suggestion. I listened to her in channel television. You understand? Because of the rate at which money is being involved in debt, getting out of the purse of the country. So 75% of the nation's critical infrastructure assets harbor top secret and confidential information. Therefore, the disruption of these key systems and essential services such as telecommunication, energy, water supply, transportation, and financial system can cause substantial economic damages to a nation's entire operations. Having said the above, the security department must strive to provide 24-hour security in-depth or layered protection in order to safeguard these special assets against unnecessary interference by spies, compromises, terrorist groups, and bandits. To this end, ladies and gentlemen, The General Service Administration (GSA) must establish and publish a minimum standard and specification for associate security services and suitable devices for the protection of all national critical infrastructure, which must be adhered to by the operators and the security practitioners. Thank you very much.
We can do better. Can't we rise up for giving it?